Now, hey, okay, welcome to Sunshine and Transparency. My name's Tony Christ. We're here with Dr. Arun Jetli again, a philosophy PhD. We spent an hour talking about a week ago about different views toward God. And this time I want to start the discussion. It's a continuation of Is there a God from our last discussion. I want to start it with the question that St. Thomas Aquinas raised, and that is that we have freedom of choice. And he, just to say two more sentences, and I'm going to let Dr. Jetli speak. He thought that you need to be free, at least in one of your actions. Many things can be determined in your life. Your height, your size, your heredity, your intelligence can be determined, but you need to be free in one of your actions to have freedom of choice. And in many religions, you have to have freedom of choice, or what are we doing? If everything's determined,
Mhm.
there's no conscience, there's no need to have a God, there's no concepts of right and wrong. So, Dr. Jetli, I'm turning it over to you now. Uh, what do you think about this issue of freedom to choose?
Thanks, Tony. Thanks for having me on again, and I wish all the best to all your viewers here as well. Okay, now we're talking about one issue here, which being as to what extent are our lives, etc., determined, and to what extent they're not determined by God or nature or whatever. See, there's something sometimes in common with some religions and atheism that also believes that everything is determined. This is why Spinoza was a very unique philosopher. People accused him of being an atheist. On the one hand, he did have this notion of everything being determined, but on the other hand, he also had a Parmenidean notion of the universe being just one entity at all times. So now the question is, to what extent are we free? Okay, Thomas Aquinas makes a very good point, giving us moral freedom. But I think that's a very restricted amount of freedom given to human beings. I would say that it also is a question whether the human freedom of the morality, for instance, is just a species of a larger genus of human freedom, which is freedom of action, moral, immoral, ethical, unethical, or otherwise. So it's the human existence per se, where there is a freedom of thought and freedom of action. So going back to like Eastern and Western thought, for instance, in the Indic themes like Buddhism, Hinduism, the law of karma is pretty much that. It's a freedom of action. So on the one hand, your karma determines what you will do. So that is obviously freedom of thought, freedom of action, etc., etc. On the other hand, you're getting rewards or punishment based on your karma. As to how you from now, I don't know how you would see this in a Christian outlook. As to is that a freedom of morality or not?
Well, Christianity, you're responsible for your choices. So if
Right.
you choose a bad choice,
Mm-hmm.
there's a consequence to it.
Right.
Of course, going back to the Ten Commandments and going back to do unto your neighbor as you would do unto yourself. The concept there's an outlined, underlined morality, and there are consequences. So your reward is in your afterlife. If you acted right and humbly and were good during your life, you're rewarded with a positive afterlife in heaven. So, but you are the responsible party.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in my concept, and you correct me, please, but in Muslim, Allah, there's far less choices. The Allah's perception of you, Allah's will determines what you do and what you don't do. So it's more of a fatalistic life.
Right.
You have to live under Sharia, and it's a fatalistic life. You don't really control the outcomes that much. So in Christianity, you do. So those are two differences, two
Right.
Western concepts of God. But go ahead.
Okay, so let me go over with my limited knowledge of Islam, although I have taught Islam at
Now,
Old
come on,
Dominion.
Doctor, you're the PhD. You've got to.
The one time I was teaching a course at Old Dominion University, and we had comparative religions. That's when I did some study of Islam. I'm by no means an Islamic scholar, but I do have some relevant background in that, so I can talk freely about it. And this is what I have to say about that. Yes, as I mentioned to you last time, one of the most popular phrases in the Islamic world is called inshallah, which means God willing, okay, which has connotations of this predestination that you're talking about. Inshallah, am I going to succeed? Inshallah, God willing. So that being said, the concept of predestination and whatever God wills will happen. So there is no freedom of movement, expression, morality, etc. That is somewhere in the religion. But to be fair to Muslims, they do believe in action. They do believe in free moral choice. That's why they have this great Sharia law. Why do you punish a person who cut his hands off if all was determined by God? What is a man's fault? Obviously, they're putting the moral responsibility on the person. That's why they're going to cut his hands off. So it's kind of a confusing concept, which a lot of religions have that basically you can interpret it either way you want. So definitely, like in Saudi Arabia, if you steal, they'll cut your hands off. So what does that mean? Is that predestined also? So obviously, there's some shade of understanding of freedom of your actions. So it's kind of hard to put the entire Islam into that, because yes, what it does, you look at it from a different point of view. This is looking at it from the objective theological point of view. But the other point of view is, I as a human being, am I responsible for what I'm doing? And obviously, they think so. What they want to basically tell you is this. This is my understanding, one interpretation of Islam, which is more positive, and I'm not very friendly towards Islam, so take it. The positive aspect of this is, hey, look, you do what you're supposed to do, and don't worry about what happens, because that's up to God. When you're going to live or die is up to God, but your actions are still free. So I would say that there is a concept of freedom in Islam, insofar as that is concerned, because it is your choice to become a suicide bomber or not. So okay, now there's one element in
You what 100 and some versions if you
72. Don't
okay. You're not shortchanging it.
You're not shortchanging. So in one of the discussions, I was talking about a woman who was going, what the hell? If I'm half of a man, then I should get 35 virgin men too. 36 rather, half of 72. So the guy was very mad when she made a comment like that. But that's besides the point. So the thing is that so you can interpret that as for freedom of morality being there. Now, there was a lot of discussions in the Middle Ages. There were philosophers who were Averroes, who was like Aristotelian Islamic person. Then there was Imam al-Ghazali, who was more, look, you gotta follow the Sharia, the law, etc., etc., etc. Now, the thing that is unusual is this, that a lot of your Orthodox priests consider violation of the law of Sharia to be the greatest crime, greater than murder, greater than rape, greater than anything else, is if you do not follow the law of Sharia. You get more punishment for that than if you were to commit a murder. So these things are, once again, the more theologically oriented people will interpret it that way. And that's...
and correct me if I'm wrong, I think the literal Sharia laws, if you don't believe in Allah, the penalty is death.
That right. And also conversion too. If you convert to Islam and you want to reconvert back, the penalty is death. Okay, so there you go. No, yeah, these are theological interpretations, and they're theologically strict Muslims do follow that. And then one of them is, if you insult Islam or Muhammad, you have to be put to death as well. So that's, there you go.
Now, Sharman is different than is it Hindu belief that there's for good actions there's a blessing, and for bad actions there's a consequence.
Yeah, consequence of good or bad, either way. Good karma brings in good action. Bad karma brings in bad action. That's, I mean, everybody kind of, even if you're not a Hindu, you believe, look, you work your ass off in tennis, you become a great tennis player. If you don't, then you won't. Your bad karma, your good karma.
But is it just intuitive, or is there an actual code of what is good karma and bad karma?
Uh, there's, well, there are some guiding principles, like in Buddhism, there's Four Noble Truths, and so on and so forth. But like, there's no strict code. Okay, now what happens if, for instance, in Hinduism, there are a lot of there's a lot of literature in which, like the Manusmriti, that tell you these are the good things and these are the bad things. But then a lot of people, Hindus, say, I don't even believe in Manusmriti, so they can throw that out the window and still be fine, because ultimately, whatever human beings write is human. It can't be divine, and they could have made mistakes. You can always change it. See, this is a huge difference. Like Islam believe that that Quran is it. You cannot change one single word on
Right.
it, not one single punctuation mark on it. That's not the case with the Eastern religions. They believe that if Manu wrote a book prescribing these laws are good, these are bad, that doesn't mean I have to follow them. But as society changes, I can change all those laws. Like in Manusmriti, polygamy is permitted. Even polyandry is permitted in that too, but that's not the point. But now in modernity, we don't buy into that, and almost 100% of Hindus agree we don't want to have polygamy. So that's what in Islam, that's, you can still have 4 wives because Muhammad said you could. So that's a difference.
So that's a big difference. That's a real big difference. Now, also in Judeo-Christianity, all the way back to the Old Testament, if I'm correct, there's a pretty well-defined policy of what is right and what is wrong.
Right.
And it's pretty laid out in the Ten Commandments.
Right.
A number of things, but not so in Hindu, not so with karma.
No. See, action is more important. Now, obviously, a lot of the 10 Commandments, the Hindus would agree with that, but they would not call them commandments. They'd call them recommendations.
Okay.
Because ultimately it's your choice. You want to commit murder, go ahead, commit it. If you're willing to face the consequences and you don't have any guilt feelings about it, go ahead, do it. Okay. So,
as you pointed out, in Sharia law with Islam, murder isn't the most severe thing that can happen.
well, once again, the Islamic scholar would argue with you on the context. Like if you're fighting a war, if you commit murder, so how is that excusable or not? Now, according to Islam, if you're fighting a jihad, a holy war, then you get murdered or killed, you get the 72 virgins, right?
Or
literally,
you can kill a non-believer, or
a killing of non-believers is perfectly allowed.
Or you can kill a person who is Islam and wants to change to, say, Christianity, kill them too.
Yeah. See, they use the word kafir for that. Generally, it is used for all non-Muslims, but somehow they have more leeway for Christians and Jews because that's part of the book. You know that they're the followers of the book. As they call it, the followers of the book, which means they're from the same tradition, so they get a little bit more leeway than the Hindus would get, for instance.
Now,
but then,
I don't know if I'm right, doctor, but my impression, my feeling of Islam is it's a very basically violent religion. Muhammad himself was a big time murderer, he killed so many people in so many battles and everything. And all the other religions, whether they're East or Western, Judaism with Abraham, with Christ, and Buddha, they weren't violent. Only one, and the irony is that Islam is prevailing. most of the people in the world are converting to Islam. And it's happening in India, it's happening in the United States. Soon they expect they're going to pass the number of Christians. They're approaching 2 billion out of the 8 billion population. And they're growing, but it seems too much rooted in violence compared to almost every other religion in the West. I don't know of any is there any Eastern religion rooted in violence?
No, 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 no.
No.
See, I mean, Christianity, of course, if you look at Jesus Christ, he's a messenger of peace, you know. You,
Right.
you turn the other cheek, you know. You turn
Right.
the other cheek. So you can, however, as it happens in reality afterwards, after Constantine adopts Christianity, it takes these teachings from Jesus, very salient teachings, and converts them into violence at that time. You know, because based on the fact that Jesus said, "On the way," meaning that anybody who doesn't believe in Jesus is not a Christian. So you come to the new world in America and convert everybody or kill everybody. So that you can't attribute that to Christ. He never would have approved any of that stuff. But the thing is, there's, as I mentioned to you last time, there's a good book that was written, or a set of teachings that was there. An emperor misemployed that and set up a system so they could use this theme to subjugate others. In that sense, Islam and Christianity are the same. But you have a point that Islam himself was a warlord, and he may have led an exemplary life, you know, and whatever. But and a lot of the Islamic scholars will tell you that a lot of these things that he's talking about, killing kafirs and stuff, is in the context of his historical moment, you know, because he had enemies. In a war, you don't excuse the enemies, and you can't have somebody convert and reconvert back. That would be a bad war decision for a warrior. So the two can get mixed up. But my point, the question that you're probably asking, and it's a very important one, is why is it that this religion is expanding, and why do people go for it if it's like what you're saying it is? Okay, now I have a theory, and you may discard it right off the bat, is that we also look at the world from our own viewpoint, our habits, our indoctrination, if you want to call it, or anything. And if there's something in any teaching that is beyond the physical world that gives you some solace, it could be evil or it could be good, and that makes us a part of this movement, and we feel so much at peace with it that we are not willing to look at what happens in the objective world. And that's where there is a lot of sway towards, say, a religion like Islam, because a lot of people who are really into it, they have so much belief in it, they have so much faith in it, that overshadows all the other things that are around. But
in addition to that, could it also be that Islam doesn't really require you to think? In other words, it's all laid out in Sharia law. It's all laid out. Your whole life is laid out. You can kill this one, you can not kill that one, you can do this, you can do that. And you don't really have to think. You don't,
right.
You don't have
I totally agree with you on that. I totally agree. See, the less thinking you do, the more you just react instinctively. It's an easier thing for you to do. You know, I hate to relate this to analogy of tennis. You know, like you hit a stroke a particular way, and then somebody said, no, you got to not hit this or the other way, and we change that technique on him, and he feels uncomfortable for about 2 days. He says, I'm not going to do it. I'm just used to the other stuff. So that's
Arun. One thing for our audience, Arun ran a tennis academy and was a tennis instructor for years, in addition to being a college professor. And I know you keep alluding to tennis. I just want to put it in context.
yeah. Thanks. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
They'll understand why.
Yeah. So yeah, I see. Like I said, I've done that for 30 some years, and I go back to tennis analogies all the time. And you know, the fact that I understand the concept of habit. When you're habitually doing A, somebody asks you, no, it's more logical to do B, and you say, okay, I'll switch, but it doesn't work out. 2 weeks, there's I can't handle this. I'm going back to A. You know, and this happens to me all the time. And so I understand. I mean, sometimes people think that this is very different from making a moral choice. For instance, somebody was to tell somebody, like, there's a lot of aspects in Islam that are very violent. Are you willing to discard them? a more moderate Muslim would say, obviously I will, but someone would say, no, no, I'm too accustomed to the other one. I feel much more at solace just honoring the book as it was, and I don't want any changes in it, so I'll stick to that. That's what I think, So you just stick to what you believe in. It doesn't matter what the right thing is.
Now, when you were very young, and I'm asking this because I really am not sure of the answer, but when you were very young, you were influenced to some degree prior to being educated by Hinduism, weren't you? Would you call that a force that operated in your life, or
well, yeah, you could say that. However, we didn't go to like church every Sunday or anything like that. There was see, in Hinduism, whenever you feel, you can go to the temple, ring a bell, sit down and pray and meditate and go and leave. There's no such thing as Sunday sermon. There are some sermons, they call them satsangs. You can go to that, but there's no prescribed time or anything like that. You can do it at any time, or you can stay at home and worship God there in any form you want, male God or female God. That's your choice. So yes, in that sense, but it was, I would say, much more similar to a lot of the modern non-believers in America, was closer to what we were than anything else, So anyway.
But you did latch on to karma. And
yes, that has impressed me even to this day. That theme has still impressed me.
Many Christians, that speak about other Jewish people I know that talk about karma.
Yeah.
I guess it's sort of gone into just about every spot you can think of, except possibly Islam.
Well, see, it's really good that you brought this out to me, that you still, you're telling me that I still stick to karma. I do, but I never thought of this before till you asked me this question. That's true. That's true. So I have some of that in me, and I didn't recognize it was part of my upbringing, but it is. You're so right about that. Yeah. But as far as following any dictums or any commandments or anything like that, none of that ever happened. Like even my dad would never give me a commandment to do this or that. Because when I was heavily into Marxism, Leninism, he never told me it was wrong, and I finally got out of it myself. But he never told me I was wrong. He just wanted more arguments, and he'd give me counter arguments, etc., and that was the end of the discussion. So that's it.
So what is the power or the ability of having some basic elemental belief in not only God, but the morality that surrounds him, and even if they're soft instructions, even if they're not harsh instructions, way to go about living your life and marriage and having a family, does it help that existence to be more cohesive? Because in America today, that's falling apart.
It's falling apart. And see, I was just going to give you, I totally agree with that. And there's a lot of attack on Christians, which I don't really buy into it. Rather than attack one basic bad element of Christianity, the theme of exclusivity and narcissism, if you got rid of that, Christianity is just very beautiful. No problem with that, because I know some Christian people who are the best human beings I've ever met. Okay, and so I'm not going to say that there's anything wrong with Christianity for that matter. But there is this element of exclusivism and you call them ethnocentrism. If you get rid of that, everything is fine, and I'm all for being more religious. So that's fine with me. Yeah.
But even in Islam, you really are in a treacherous place, I think, if you don't have a family, if you don't have a mom and a dad to help raise you and bring you into the world. In America today, by government statistics, 30% of children are in a single parent setting. It's almost a prescription for poverty right there.
Exactly.
When you have some morality, I mean, men will create the baby and not have the responsibility, leave or walk away. And that's not the way it was, when you and I were in school back in.
Yes. And unfortunately, some of our compatriots our age or younger are going through it now. So a lot of it, it goes through that you have a little bit of disagreement, you just separate, or many other things that can happen. Like, to me, marriage is like any other job. There's good and bad that happens. You have to learn to deal with that, and we have to make some of the more difficult moments more enjoyable. Somehow you got to figure that out. So yeah, without having a great family cohesive unit, we develop a sense of alienation, and that can lead to a lot of problems. And this concept of alienation has been very known in the West since the early 1900s, and that's why you have existentialism, you have Sartre and Camus, some of these very pessimistic thinkers. Yeah, alienation is part of it, and we need to feel good on the inside, and family provides that feel.
Plus, children need stimulus. They small child, if you're ignored, if you're in a house without a dad and your mom has to work all day,
Right.
you get no stimulus. You get nobody instructing you. You have no one there to show you the correct way to do something. Or
Right. Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
inhibit you physically, inhibits you mentally too. You don't get to form a young personality around it. I think. So it's not. So you basically agree you need a mom and a dad to
Right.
and
We have problem with
no matter
single
what
mother.
the culture is, no
Go
matter
ahead. Yeah.
even in Islam.
Oh yeah. See, you can say that one good thing about Islam, like any other religion, is it likes families. Okay, so in that sense, it's a positive force too. They like families. I would say, except for really radical ones who want to have 5 wives and screw the world, majority of Muslims are not like that, and they prefer family-oriented society as well. So that's the positive there, if you want it. And so, in that sense, even Islam would be preserved. But to me, like I said to you, Christianity is very mild, and it is not ethnocentric anymore. The biggest problem with Islam is exclusivity. It excludes everybody else from existence except them. That's the only issue that I have with them. Otherwise, I'm fine.
But today in America, you see Christianity's faded, and you 33%. I've read statistics as high as 40% of absentee families where there's
oh my gosh,
parent.
yeah.
And why certainly Christianity and any religion can be criticized, but I don't know a place in the world where 33% of the youth are raised in single parent families. Not anywhere, not China, not the only the United States. And it suggests to me that there's something not good.
Yeah.
Good going on.
Yeah. Well, it's not good. I mean, you were raised from a very loving family, so was I, and I know the difference. And I know the difference, especially because I've been involved with children for the last 35 years teaching them, not just tennis. These are serious tennis players. The tennis is part of their life and the education. I was more involved in every aspect of my better tennis players are involved with every aspect of their life, college decisions, what majors to do, and what how to think, etc. So, and I'll tell you the difference between a happier family, child from a happier family, and a child from a disturbed family. There's a huge difference, generally speaking.
I'm saying even within reason, a disturbed family with 2 parents is in some respects better than a mom trying to do it all alone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Give it within limits. I mean, you can't be too much out there. And most of the people you had at the academy were probably well.
No, they're mostly wealthy, upper middle class to wealthy class is what we had. Yeah,
they were not. These kids that are trying to cope with a single parent mom and grow up weren't probably.
No, I had very few of those. Very few. I have to admit that. But I would also tell you, as the time has progressed in the 40 years, there are more single parent kids now than there were before, like 20 years ago. So it has increased. So yeah, there has been a change, but you're right. In the vast majority of the cases, I dealt with upper middle class, wealthier families. But I still dealt with very unstable family background. You're talking about single mother. That is absolutely the worst situation. But there's a lot of dinks. You know what dinks are? double income, no kids.
Yeah,
So, well, sometimes they have double income, just one kid or something, and they can shower all the money on the kid, but there's nothing there at home. And the kids with a babysitter, and then the tennis coach, me, and then go home to go to the babysitter. Parents come home at 9 o'clock and they just go to bed. So that is also not good, So there's something has to be done.
is it related to an absence of a God in their life? Is this breakup of the American family that we're seeing, particularly, well, since 1980, actually, but now this century, much worse, because you don't see it in almost any other culture, not to this degree.
Well, yeah, that's an excellent question, Tony. Is Yeah, if you want to consider God as something that is sort of like something that we seek, that is part of human existence, yeah, you can say that you're correct. Yeah, you can say that you're correct. However, I may disagree with something that you said, that this is a phenomenon unique to the United States. I think it's more universal than you might think, especially in Europe and now even in India. I see there's dramatic amount of change in the newer families. They're less caring than they used to be before. So I see this in this sense, I go back to Marxism, So see, it's more like a universal concept, maybe led by the United States, but I think it's more than US.
Yeah. But it's the moral teachings of the religion. It's not really even in some cases the deity himself. It's the concepts of right and wrong that become inborn. They're very young, and you respond to them. You don't think about them
right.
every day.
Right.
You just respond to them. And I checked, and I might be wrong, but I just use Google. But I mean, you have countries, China, 5% divorce rate. Russia, 9. Not Russia was one of the high ones, 9%. Almost every country doesn't have the prevalence of family destruction, traditional family destruction we have. On the level we have it, some estimates go up to 40%.
Yeah.
Well, Black families is 66%. In Hispanics is 54%.
Where's 54? Canada?
Hispanics.
Oh, Hispanics. Okay.
And in whites, it's near 30. And overall, it's I've seen numbers as high as 41.
I'm really surprised.
The number is 33%.
I'm really surprised that Hispanics is 54%. That's news to me, but that's what it is. Yeah. So yep. And having no understanding of the finitude of human existence and having, say, God could definitely be an issue in here. I think so. But I will also tell you that U.S. is leading the way. The other world is going towards this. So it's not an American problem alone. I don't believe that. We lead the way, and like everything else, but it's going to happen everywhere else too. Even in India, I see an upsurge of all of this American phenomenon. Even there, in Europe, it's there too, but it's not quite caught up yet. But it's there. It's getting there. The good and the bad from America is going everywhere. The good
spills over into academics too. I mean, if you look at high schools today, the performances have dropped a lot in the century. You take the international PIA test, which is given to 15-year-olds. The United States last century was number one. Recently, they redid the 22 test, and we're 36th in the world.
Oh, geez, I didn't realize it was that much.
Our spending on education is number two. We're number two spending. So there's a lot of money going into.
It's not the money. It's not the money.
And then the question is it this underlying broken family? Is it influencing education? Is it?
Yeah, broken families is a huge part of it. It's a huge part of it. Then our priorities too. There's a particular private school in Cleveland. They just got a grant of $50 million to help the school education. So what they do is they redo the cafeteria, a couple other buildings. Nothing about the real substance. I mean, the beautiful high school. You don't need anything else. You You could go get by with the theater that they have with fields and everything, but they would rather spend it on some building or something rather than figuring, look, maybe we could get the children something else extra in that. It costs $36,000 a year to go to this high school, by the way. So yeah. See, our priorities have changed. The fact that we need to educate the mind and the spirit is somehow lost, you know.
Yeah.
So we've lost, and I think the fact that we've lost the concept of affinity, which relates back to having a concept of God, is a factor for sure.
To our audience, our program is Sunshine and Transparency. We will be on YouTube. This will be the first week we will be under Sunshine and Transparency on YouTube. We have Dr. Arun Jetli as our guest today. He's been our guest for two weeks. We've been discussing in general, is there a God? This week we're spilling over to carry that to families, the effect of moral code, moral beliefs, and the fact that in many instances today, they seem to be failing or falling by the wayside, and it's affecting academics too. So we're sponsored by odysseyinvestments.info, the website odysseyinvestments.info. But we'll get back to Dr. Jetli on this question because I do think it's so important. We also are going broke in America, and we're going broke. I reviewed some numbers. We have 101 welfare programs. And when welfare was now not going back to FDR, but just going back to Johnson, when the major welfare plans were passed in 65, he said the intention is to help the person that's down to give them a start so they can get back on their feet. But unfortunately, today, that's not the case. And we're spending of money collected in taxes. We collected 4.9 trillion. We're spent almost 80% on welfare. If you tack in interest on the debt, it's 101%. That means for the whole government, starting with defense, State Department, Commerce, 14 different departments, there's no money. We had to borrow the money. So this is something that's not sustainable. And I think it's related to the other, I think it's related to the lack of having pillars in your life today in America, the loss of family, and also maybe the loss of the morality given to us by God, a way to live, or the questioning or the challenging of it. It's all been a destructive course, and the reliance on welfare has become a lifelong thing for many, many individuals, not just a short-term thing, not like a trampoline to bounce on and get back off. It's become like flypaper. They fall on it and they get stuck, and it's unsustainable. Any comments on all of that?
Well, Tony, you said so much, and there's hardly anything that you said that I would disagree with. It's absolutely the case. First of all, you have this concept of finitude of humanity and a God. Secondly, you have to have an understanding that a human being, as Sartre once said, is a project. And so if you take a human being and just put him on welfare and just sit on your ass and do nothing, we just provide you so many dollars per month, and then this person gets into that habit, then it's hard to get him out of that habit. And what we can say, oh, they're lazy or something like that. We just blame it on that and just walk away from it. No, very few people are really, really lazy. If you involve them in a certain project that is exciting, beneficial to the society, and you pay them for that, that is really the way out. That is the only way. Is that that person will only be salvaged if we do that, not if we just give him money and make him sit and do nothing. Then it's like an alcohol. It's just like an alcoholic. You just give more alcohol, he just drinks more alcohol. A person has no job, sits and doesn't do anything. It's like an alcoholic. That's what it is enabling them.
And it's a sad existence too. Because,
right. For the yeah, absolutely.
Because it's you don't have the struggle, the day-to-day struggle, the decision, the losses and the gains every day and every little thing you do. Well, Well, Doctor, I'm telling you, we're really enjoying this. Go ahead and what closing remarks in the way of advice would you give our viewers regarding leading a good life and regarding having a God or having a moral code in your life? Or,
Tony, you give him
or
this is a tall order,
or
but what I will say is, yeah, the recognition of the finitude of our existence and recognizing a higher being, which is out there, which can, according to my thought, be contacted to bring the divinity within ourselves to to lead a happier life. You know, that's what we need. Would be. It's just very hard to say, but hard to do. As to how we could engage in this project is a difficult question because, for instance, the welfare system needs a change. It, it has to be something where the person who's fallen off the horse because of whatever his circumstances or somebody else's is back to be pulled up and put it back on the horse, not just make trot along with the horse. So you engaged with that person to get them involved in projects that are helpful to them and society. This should be the initiative of the welfare program, I think. And lastly, it's anybody can project about being a moralistic person. The best solution is to take the better aspects of religion and incorporate that in our life, and just not dwell on all the negative that the religion has brought to our existence. That's what I think. Yeah.
does humility play a part?
Yeah, humility plays a part because, see, the humility doesn't mean that you're nothing. Humility just means that you are everything and yet you're nothing, because look at the scope of the universe and God. That my knowledge will always be limited. No matter how smart I am, 200 IQ, my knowledge is still very minuscule about the universe. So I'm gonna find myself and find myself under this rubric of, especially God in the Christian Islamic tradition is a very fine thing. And it's in Buddhism, it's a little different, but it's basically the same thing. We recognize our finitude and we also recognize our potential at the same time. So this is it. But you got me thinking. I'm may think of some other more concrete plans that you and I could come up with. You think about something. See if there's anything concrete we can come out with and say, hey, look, maybe we should do A, B, and C, and X, Y, and Z. So that's it.
We'll prepare that for the next podcast because we'll certainly have you back in the future. This
Yes.
is Dr. Arun Jetli. The program is Sunshine and Transparency. My name is Tony Chris. We thank you all for watching. We will be on YouTube, and we want you all to have a blessed weekend. And Dr. Jetli, we're going to say goodbye and goodbye to our audience, and we'll be seeing you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tony. It was a pleasure being with you again. We used to have these conversations when we were in college. Now we're reigniting them. So that'll be awesome. Thank you so much. And all the best to your viewers. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.